Okay, folks, so just a little tip for you that I use in a lot of my writing, including the PhD. So it's just a little tip for you, and it's using Google Scholar in order to enhance critical analysis. So what do I mean by that? Now let's take this as an example. Here is an article by Janet O'Sullivan, and what it does is engages in a defence of Folks and Beer. And as we know, Folks and Beer being the seminal case on part payment of debt. So Janet O'Sullivan goes through in this article about 8 or 9 different points of how she agrees with the rule folk beer. So you would read that article and you think to yourself, well, do I agree with what she's saying or not? If you can't make a decision, what you could do is investigate, well, what have other people said about this article? Do people agree with what Janet O'Sullivan is saying, or do they disagree? Are they indifferent? And what you can do then in your essay is build up a great critical analysis which has at its foundation the arguments presented by other people. So Janet O'Sullivan, I can tell you, is in a minority here in this article about Folks and Beer. She's not in great company. She's quite isolated in her stance, in that most other academics believe that the rule should be overruled. But it's not the important aspect of this little screencast. What I'm saying is that use Google Scholar. So let's search for Google Scholar. So you will have access that article somehow yourself, maybe through the recommended reading, online research. But this is what I want you to do. So go to Google Scholar. You know that it's Janet. Just have to type in Sullivan. Defense of Folks and Beer. That should be defense. Okay, so let's see. And we can see here, in defense of Folks and Beer. Now, why do we want to look at it in Google Scholar? Because, as I'm sure some of you will know, if not all of you, but it's just a little tip I wanted to re-emphasize. Look at this, cited by 6. So you click that, and all 6 of these articles, of these sources, have in some way referenced the Janet O'Sullivan article. Now, this is not a great example because we don't have 20 or 30 different sources that have dealt with the Janet O'Sullivan article. But I can assure you, if you go into this one, I've read this is a revision guide, so definitely don't use that one. But what I can assure you is, if you go into these two, you open up those articles. If you can't directly access the article using this button, just search for the actual journal collection, so such as Law and Literature, through the library catalogue, and then go and find that particular journal. Hit Control F, type in O'Sullivan or Janet, and that will take you to the point in these articles. Hopefully, when you're using this for your coursework, you'll have 10 or 20 or 30 results, and then you can see, right, what have they said about that particular article? Do most people agree? Do they disagree? So then your essay will become, this is one of the arguments put forward about part payment of debt, and state what Janet O'Sullivan says. If you disagree with her, say, you know, this is an indefensible argument, as we can see in the following sources, as outlined by blah blah blah, X, Y, and Z. They really criticise what Janet O'Sullivan has said on this topic. Now, for those of you that are really interested in going further, and this is about depth of research, you might say click this, for example, and start reading that article on Janet O'Sullivan and what is said about Janet O'Sullivan's article. That article itself may then reference lots of other articles on the issue, so then you would go to those articles and research those. So In a way, you're linking and linking and linking through to different sources and building up a great profile on quite a narrow topic. And I'm sure you know by now, to get 70 and above, especially at level 3, there has to be level 3 and above, which would include MLaw. You need to have breadth and depth of knowledge and understanding, and this is one way of doing that. I don't want to call it a shortcut. I hope it's just really pointing out something which I should be obvious through Google Scholar. It certainly helps me a lot in looking at a specific narrow issue and really getting to grips with what has been said on that particular narrow, precise argument. So hopefully that will be of some value to you. I'll start putting these up over the next few weeks, little things I remember that help me, that might help you guys. So that's my first one.